new figures out from the ONS today showing the economy grew by 0.5% before the war. That's good news, right?
Look, if you look at what Rachel Reeves has done to the economy, if you go and talk to any normal business in the real world, they will say they are hugely struggling, whether it's their energy costs, which went up under Ed Miliband before we even hit this energy crisis, the huge amount of taxes they're having to pay, the cost of employment's gone up. This has been a horrible time for businesses, and we shouldn't pretend otherwise.
So you're not giving the Chancellor any credit for this at all?
No, I think she's done a horrible job of managing the economy. She's borrowed too much, inflation has run too high, she's put all of these taxes on hiring people, so unemployment's gone up. Our youth unemployment is at 15 to 16%. So no, I do not think she's done a good job on the economy.
And the plan the government has put in place today, this British Industrial Competitiveness Scheme, they say will cut electricity bills for 10,000 firms. Do you think this does enough for British business?
No, I don't think this does enough. So this scheme will affect 0.2% of British businesses, and it's going to cost the taxpayer money. Now, businesses are crying out for help, but there is a better way. We have a cheap power plan that would cut electricity by 20% for all businesses, those small manufacturers, those farmers, those pubs, those restaurants who aren't getting any help from this scheme would get help under our scheme, and it wouldn't cost the taxpayer a penny. I'm afraid they have not been interested at all in making the energy system cheaper. All they have done is piled on extra costs, and now they are having to find subsidies to help a tiny majority of businesses. It is not enough.
And if you were in government and you were able to implement your scheme, how quickly would businesses actually feel that effect?
Well, this is the big problem with their approach. This scheme doesn't kick in until 2027. Our plan you could do now. We would cut a carbon tax, we would cut outdated subsidies, we would generally have an approach to cut the cost of energy to make it cheaper for everyone, and that would help all businesses.
And the reason this is so pressing today is because the Iran war has driven up oil prices. This was a war that your party supported from the outset, and it didn't appear to have any clear aims, and we still don't know whether anything has really been achieved. The British public is also against the war. Do you accept that on this issue, Kemi got this one wrong?
So Kemi's position, which Keir Starmer loves to misrepresent, is that we should have protected ourselves abroad. I still think it is scandalous that British bases were not being protected by us, but by some of our allies instead. It was the first time in decades that we did not have a destroyer in the Middle East. I mean, that is extraordinary when you consider how long we knew that this conflict was rising, the tension was rising in the region. So I do think we should defend ourselves abroad. I do think if we have bases based in other people's countries, that we should be able to protect those bases, and I think it was scandalous that Keir Starmer did not do that.
And on Keir Starmer, he's meeting social media companies today in Downing Street, looking at ways of protecting young people online. Do you think anything substantive will actually come out of that meeting?
Well, look, we had a vote last night where the Conservatives said we should ban smartphones in schools. That's something the vast majority of the country agrees with, it's something that teachers agree with, and yet the Labour Party voted against it. Why? It is not clear. If you go and talk to any parent in the country, and they'll say one of their biggest worries is their children being online. And I'm afraid we've got to do more. You can see it in brain development, anxiety, all of these effects. We have to get on with this. We have to make sure that we can ban smartphones in schools for under 16s. We've put forward the amendments. Everybody is with us. It's just the Labour government that are dithering and delaying on this issue.
And you also want to ban social media usage for under 16s as well. That's something the party said. Companies like Google have made clear their opposition to blanket bans of that kind. How would you manage that pushback from the industry?
Well, look, I'm sure there are going to be people who do very well out of our teenagers being online and our young people being online who would push back, but I'm afraid we have to protect children first. We ban children from smoking, we ban them from drinking alcohol, from going to nightclubs, and we do that for a good reason, because we care about the protection of children. This is the same. Social media for under 16s is harming them. We have the evidence. We know that it's clear. Parents are worried. Actually, lots of young people are worried. We need to be able to act and make sure that they are protected.
And just the last one from me. It's a year to the day since that Supreme Court judgment was made on single-sex spaces, and we're still waiting for the guidance from the government on that. Do you think they're dragging their feet here? Do you think they're taking too long? I know they've said that it's going to be released in May, but it has been quite a long time.
What has been the delay? We had a landmark ruling last year that stated biological sex was rule, single-sex spaces should be protected. The government said that they welcomed that, and yet we've seen nothing from them for the past year, and I'm afraid it has just been obstruction, delay, no grip, no interest, frankly, and they need to act. This is not a trivial matter. This is about women being forced to undress in front of men. This is about women losing their jobs in some cases. I've seen with hard-working nurses in the NHS, they're being sanctioned and punished for simply stating that biological sex is real. Enough is enough. We have to act. We have to get on with this.
Well, we're here in a petrol station outside Nottingham to send a very clear message to Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor. She needs to take action with the cost of living. People are hurting right now because of the cost of fuel. And the people I've been speaking to here, from mums and dads, carers, tradesmen, they all want to see change. A reform government is saying, please bring down the cost of petrol and diesel. So we're urging Rachel Reeves to do an emergency cut in VAT. If she halved it, that would mean 13p off a litre of unleaded, 16p off a litre of diesel. And obviously, don't go ahead with the increase in fuel duty that's coming down the line in September. If she doesn't do that, then a reform government will do it in our first budget. You know, Rachel Reeves is profiteering. She's raking it in at the moment. She's making tens of millions of pounds extra in tax revenues every day as a result of the increased VAT when you're paying your domestic energy bill, or the fuel duty and the VAT when you're filling up at the forecourt. She should use a bit of that to lighten the load for people at the moment. That is the only thing that we're calling for. It's very reasonable. Loads of governments around the world are doing exactly the same, from Spain and Portugal to Australia to the Republic of Ireland. But Rachel Reeves is acting like some kind of bystander. She's the Chancellor, and people want action now. Rachel Reeves is raking it in, and she is betraying working people by not using just a bit of that to lighten the load. Well, we would obviously put pressure on the forecourt operators to make sure that that's all passed on. I know that's not always easy, and there are things that are being done right now from apps and others to try and give people greater transparency. But look, we have to take action like this now, and if anyone is price gouging, it's the Chancellor at the moment. Look, it is madness that we are facing this crisis in our energy security, and yet we are not drilling everything that is available on the British part of the North Sea. Since 2021, we paid £100 billion to Norway to import gas from the Norwegian part of the North Sea, when Ed Miliband is literally banning new licences on the British part of the North Sea. There are 2 licences sat on his desk. He could sign those off today. They would be up and running within weeks. They would create thousands of jobs, and they'd bring in tens of billions of pounds of tax revenues that could help to support things like this, lightening the load by reducing people's bills. That's what a reform government would do. Well, there are at least 2 licences that could be signed off immediately, where the oil and gas fields would be up and running within weeks and would make an immediate impact. Others, yes, will take longer, but we want to ensure that we're not as exposed as a country to these energy shocks in the decades to come. And the IMF today is saying that the UK's economy is amongst the most exposed of any of the developed countries in the world, and that is because of bad energy policies, first by the Conservatives and now by Labour. We've got to do things differently if we don't want to keep hurting working people and businesses, making them so uncompetitive in the years to come. No, I strongly welcome this inquiry. The Boris wave was probably the worst decision that any government has made in the 21st century. It let in millions of people into this country. Only 20% of them were here to work, and those who were often in low-wage, low-skilled jobs. It's had a massive impact, and as we revealed this week, is going to cost £620 billion to the British taxpayer in the years to come, if it's not reversed. That's £20,000 per household. I resigned from Rishi Sunak's cabinet over this issue and illegal migration, and then went onto the backbenches to campaign against it, and it's one of the main reasons I chose to leave the Conservative Party and come to Reform, because I don't trust the Conservative Party, because its record was so disastrous. What we have to do now is make sure that the Boris wave doesn't become permanent, and that is to put pressure on Keir Starmer to ensure that those people who came here, who will never be economic contributors to this country, go home. and do not stay here, and it's not hard-working Brits who are picking up the bill for generations to come.